Hola, everyone. How's it going? We're talking
Yeah.
about Barry tonight because it
We're talking
finished
about
last
my
night.
father.
Yes,
Da, da, da,
Barry.
da, da, da,
Barry
da,
Brent. No.
da.
Yeah, so welcome to Geeks with Kids. We are a podcast that does stuff. Geeky stuff. Sometimes we review stuff. Sometimes we just talk about the culture. And joining me this week is Hawk and Brent, and we're talking about HBO's Barry. Obviously, there will be spoilers all through tonight's chat because
Oh
the
yeah.
series ends and we want to talk about how good it is. But, before we get into the spoiler section, Hawk, what is Barry about? What is HBO's Barry about? And who is it by?
So, so Barry was created by Bill Hader and Alec Berg. It is a half-hour sitcom, dark dramedy. I don't know. It's a little bit of all of that on HBO. It's about Barry Berkman. He is a Midwestern ex-Marine, dishonorably discharged. When he got home to the States, if a friend of his father named Robert Fuchs, who is some sort of like a father figure to him,
He's a father figure. I would agree with that.
It's pseudo father figure.
I think it
for
really, especially with what he says in the finale, I feel like that is very apt as a father figure to him.
hmm So this man convinced Barry that his skills overseas and that could be put to good use here over there in the United States. So Barry becomes a contract killer. And you'd think it would be a glamorous life, but it really doesn't seem like it to Barry. He lives in a crappy apartment. He plays Xbox. He has his old Metallica posters from high school on his walls. And Fuchs is very cheap on the reins as far as the monies. He controls all the money and sends Barry on just econo-class flights through Toronto or Ontario and that to get to his jobs. So it's basically this guy is not in a good place. And his latest target is in L.A. He's a wannabe actor who has slept with the wife of a Chechnyan mob boss. Uh, Anyways, as Barry follows his target, he follows him to an actor's workshop, and something in him clicks. He thinks maybe he could make a go of it and that, but unfortunately, all the ties to his old life keep pulling at him.
Who does he meet at this workshop?
Well,
We might as well
this,
introduce all the main characters.
it's true. Well, through his contact with the Chechen gang, we're introduced to the character of NoHo Hank, who is a lieutenant and the go-to guy in his outfit. At the actor's workshop, he meets Sally Reed, who is a wannabe actress and that with the most potential in the class, and very, very quickly develops a crush.
Canadian actress, I understand.
Yeah, Sarah Goldberg,
Mm.
fantastic.
Yeah, she's
I,
very good in that role.
Who else are we introducing?
Gene.
And
Oh,
also,
Mr.
also the
Gene
star,
Cousineau.
who is now an Emmy award-winning actor, Henry Winkler, in the role of Gene Cousineau, and that washed-out actor who is actually a very talented acting teacher, who Barry convinces to let him into his class.
Yeah.
I would say he's a very talented actor too, who's just burned way too many bridges in his career.
Yeah.
Right, like it's not about the talent,
Yeah.
right? It's
It's
just
not that
about
he can't get the work on talent; it's that no
No
one
one
will
wants to
hire
work.
this man.
No one wants to work with him at all.
No, I know that is very much referenced in the show, and that especially with the as we see later on with the handgun that he has from it was a gift to him from Rip Torn,
Rip Torn.
who is famously another actor in that whose bold personality it burned a lot of bridges for him in Hollywood.
Quick before we get into spoilers, do you recommend this series, Hawk?
Oh
For people to
my
watch.
God! If you're not one of those people watching, and that I don't know why not. Possibly you don't enjoy the humor. But if you're someone who enjoys like the kind of the heyday of the Coen brothers, with Raising Arizona or most of their comedies, Hudsucker Proxy, and probably a little bit of a David Lynchian twist, I would say in this series. But this is a series for you.
Brent.
I wouldn't have been pitching this episode for the past week on the podcast going, like, guys, it's ending. We got to talk about it. We got to talk about it. We got to talk about it. I love this show so much. Like, this is, like I said, this is a rough week. Within 1 week, my Survivor is done until the
Oh,
fall.
it was so
I lost
good.
Barry, and then tomorrow night I lose Ted Lasso. It's been a rough week.
Same. I have the same. I had Survivor,
Yeah,
which was amazing.
it was a great season. Great season.
It was
great
a
winner.
banger season,
Yeah.
as they said.
But yeah, I mean, like I'm such a huge like he is my new bucket list actor to meet one day is Bill Hader. I am so enamored by his talent and so much more from this show because this is something we've never seen from him. And to all the
Yeah.
people who like made the questions about like, you know, when there was all that Oscar buzz around him for It Chapter 2, and some people like kind of question that, like, yeah, whatever, he did good. And I was watch this show and watch his performance and watch a man going through absolute turmoil for 4 straight seasons and doing it so beautifully.
Yeah.
I can't recommend the show enough.
And people are only like basing his acting on SNL, but like even so, like SNL, he was amazing on there.
First role out of SNL, Skeleton Twins.
I've never seen that.
A phenomenal movie. Him and Kristen Wiig both doing dramatic turns, playing. They're playing troubled brother and sister. He's attempted suicide and he's gone to live with his sister to help take care of him. And it's about the dynamic between them and their relationship with their parents. It's a comedy drama, leaning more heavily on the drama side, but phenomenal movie and amazing performance by him.
That's fair.
He is a standout in it.
There's an amazing short of him and Kristen Wiig as they share this moment in the film where they basically lip sync heart to heart. When
they
we build this dream together.
Oh, I definitely have to see.
I stole that scene as a Twitch redeem on my channel. So it's literally me dancing with them in that sequence. Like,
yeah, this show, man, it is incredible. The way it balances like its comedic elements versus its dark, like dramatic sequences is brilliant. And then you get the overlap of the two, and you're just like, I don't know if I should be laughing or I should just be like upset or something. Yeah. What really stands out is how well written all the characters are, how engaging the storylines have been. Like Hawk has been trying to get me to watch the show for ages, and I finally got it because I got HBO this year. So he's like, watch this now. Watch it now. Stop The Wire because you have to watch that too. But watch Barry because it's ending. So I started watching the first season, and I was like, I have to watch all of this before April. I was like, I will definitely get to it. And then I finished it in like 2 weeks. I finished 3 seasons. Like, it's a quick watch.
It's only 4 seasons, 8 episodes a season. It's a quick watch.
It was phenomenal. Not just the writing and the acting from Bill Hader, but like the secondary cast is phenomenal. Sarah Goldberg, Henry Winkler, Anthony Kerrigan. Like,
NoHo Hank history is one of the best characters ever.
NoHo Hanks gives me life. Like, he's delightful, and we will talk about each of the characters and their overarching story. I just hit my hat. But the show, like, it's just so good. So watch it. And we're gonna get into spoilers now. Spoilers are happening in 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna start with the finale.
Wow.
Because it just happened. It's still raw for me. It happened last night, and as soon as it finished, I messaged Hawk and I was like, I'm gonna need to process this. Because not only did the show kill the main character halfway through the episode, but it ended on a character we didn't really know. So I want to talk about the final scene, which was John, their son, watching a film adaptation of Barry Berkman's life. What did you guys take away from this? Like, what did you think was the point, and what did you think of how they adapted it?
Like, I know there's a comment in Hollywood about it. I've seen this happen in numerous stories in Hollywood.
Based on true events.
Completely getting it wrong.
Which happens, like look at The Greatest Showman. Nothing. That is right. Nothing.
No, it really is through the lens of the camera, right? And in this alternate take on what happened, the events that transpired, and that Barry was the hero. manipulated by an evil, twisted, psychotic acting coach, and that into who used his past trauma and his need for an authority or a guiding light, and pushed him to I don't know what, like an acting coach mixed up with the Chechnya mob. That scene where Barry accidentally walks in on their meeting.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Uh, but casting him as a hero, but there was something kind of odd about it because it was his kid's first time watching it. His mother obviously would never talk
No.
about the past,
Yeah.
never talk about him, and he was like 8 the last time he saw his dad. So like
And really,
it's,
what did he see from that last
What-
little bit? Nothing. Really.
nothing. He was a secluded child.
Yeah.
There was a crazy night. He would probably blocked out a lot of that night when you think about it.
Well,
But,
Fuchs
like,
covered him, so he didn't really see what happened. He sort of just,
Yeah.
and then
which
he was taken away by his dad.
And then there was nothing between Fuchs and Barry after that. Like it was just like, here's your son, unknowing little like, okay,
Yeah.
good luck to you, kind of. We're cool.
Yeah.
You get it with a little quick turn back to make sure he wouldn't shoot him in the back as he was leaving.
Yeah.
But in this, it was weird because like the kid doesn't know anything about his dad, and in this, Hollywood gave him the dad that he wanted, and he kind of believed in. The dad who was like a trained, ex, soldier, with a heart of gold, who was always trying to teach him about right and wrong.
Yeah.
In a way, it was perfect in that because the kid, we felt so bad for him throughout the, this last, the last 3 episodes since we actually been introduced to him.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's like Hollywood was the one who gave him the father, that he wanted and needed.
Quick side question: was this kid was in It? Was this the younger version
Yes.
of Bill Hader's character?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
that was Finn Wolfhard.
Oh, was that Finn Wolfhard?
Finn Wolfhard was the younger version in it.
But
I
he
thought
wasn't
I
it.
thought it was Noah Schnapp. I thought it was Noah Schnapp, Will Byers from Stranger Things, but it wasn't.
No, this is the kid from It.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait a
I
minute,
just wasn't sure if it was the same character as
Yes,
him.
it is. Yeah, it was
But
him. It was
I
one.
thought it was no. I was looking for a specific name at the end of the credits, and I didn't see the name come up.
Yeah,
I haven't actually.
this is the
look it
kid
up
from
real
It
quick.
for sure.
This is definitely it. Yeah.
I do like that this. So when we in the finale, Sally talks to John about how they're fugitives, right, and how she's not a good person and Barry's not a good person and they're not good parents to him. So you have to assume that she's sort of. You see her life sort of turn around at the end, but I don't think she has ever gotten away from that feeling that she's been a bad person to her son, and Barry's been a bad
Right.
person to her son. So I don't. The fact she probably saw this movie just because, right? She needs to know what happened or what is being said about her. I don't think that's gone away from her character.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. It was the guy, but it just wasn't the one who played Bill Hader's character in it. It was the one who played Bill Denbrough,
Okay.
Yeah.
James McAvoy's.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you assume that all through his life, all through John's life, he just has known his dad as maybe not a great person, but someone just trying to get by. And then this one sort of puts him in this
overprotective.
yeah. And then now you
Yeah.
get this whole he's a hero, and you see him smile at the end. He's like, oh, he is a good person. You're like, fuck, is this gonna just start another cycle of that?
I don't know.
What got me in the finale, like my point here for the finale, what I thought the movie represented.
Should I turn off the earphones?
No.
Okay.
This is nothing to do with that. This is based entirely on everything that you've seen. We've got a running thing going on about like I have a comparison to this episode and the movie The Departed, but Eric has not seen The Departed.
I'm
so
sorry.
We can't say that. But anyway, no. I just like the movie to me represented every character's final wish, but be careful what you wish for.
Oh yeah.
The last thing that Barry wanted was, I don't care if I die, as long as my son is protected, as long as my son can live his life. And then this movie comes out and shows his father was a hero. So his son can live his life knowing his father is a hero.
Mhm.
All Gene Cousineau wanted the entire time was to become famous and to become famous again, to get this movie made. And every single time he started going down the right path and doing the right things, something would come along and entice him and pull him back to the dark side again. And then that's what this movie was. It was a final like, okay, you get the movie that you always wanted, but you're now the bad guy in it because you couldn't act properly.
Yeah.
It was like every character at the end got what they ultimately wanted.
Yeah. Sally got
Whether
recognition being an
Sally
actress
finally
and
gets the
director,
recognition, she's become an actress, she's become a teacher, but not in the way that she's wanted to, not in the capacity that she's wanted to,
but
but she
still.
did get what she wanted.
And I believe her that teacher friend was saying that that school is now known for the acting, right? So that's a thing that even Gene couldn't do.
Yeah.
And then
Even
NoHo,
NoHo gets what he wants
he's back with
at the
Christabel.
end. He died, but he died with the statue of Christabel. He died in his arms, and like that tableau,
Oh, beautiful.
was just perfect because that is exactly the kind of tableau you would picture the two characters while they were still alive would do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
It's
even at
true.
the end, Fuchs got what he wanted. All Fuchs wanted was he wanted to be seen as a father figure. He always kind of saw himself as this misguided father figure for Barry and like always pulling him in the wrong direction. And he finally found like, okay, if I do this for him, then I finally get what I want. I finally am that father figure for
I'm
him.
glad you said that because I wanted to go off and go into individual characters. And Fuchs is a great character to start with because of his last speech in the finale,
Raven.
where he said that he was, when he finally opened his eyes in prison, he realized he was a person with no heart and no love in
Yeah.
himself. But that's not true because he's always had this love for Barry, even though he's like had this sort of back and forth with him, like they trying to kill each other, trying to not. He's always cared for him, at least in some
Yeah.
sort of capacity. This whole season, when we saw the flashbacks of him meeting Barry as a kid, like you see that there was always a connection there. He
Yeah.
seemed a little bit cold in the first couple seasons, but you know he's trying to protect Barry and himself. What do you think
Yeah.
about his character growth from the first season, this sort of like handler, to the Raven who saves the day at the end? He jumped on Jonathan to save him. Like that, I would not have expected
And I think
that.
I kind of expected. I think that from the moment that when NoHo called him and said, I've got the girlfriend, and he just like, I don't care. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. Oh, and I've got his son, and then that's what triggered him. Like, oh shit, like that hit Barry's son being in danger brings up all of the same feelings in himself about me being Barry's father figure. So now it's like I need to go out and protect his son for him. As his surrogate father, I need to protect his son for his father. Like,
Hawk.
Oh, I don't know if at that particular moment Fuchs was thinking that, because like I look back on every point in the last couple seasons, especially since 3. And you remember when Fuchs was in Chechnya and
Yep.
basically had this wonderful, amazing girlfriend, this idyllic life out in the country and that away from all the past.
Mhm.
And at the first opportunity, he steals a truck and heads back to the States because he wanted revenge on Barry. That
Yeah.
was Fuchs all along, Yeah, in the first season, he was this handler, the guy who arranged the contracts and all the, the details, He's a good detail-oriented kind of leader, but Fuchs was always this guy dealing in the shadiest of underworlds and that among killers, and like he was not, he himself was definitely not a killer, which meant, he relied on Barry a lot to protect him and that. And a lot of times that didn't happen.
yeah.
In the first season, he had his teeth drilled in that by a Chechnyan psychopath.
Yep.
Second season, oh my God, all the stuff that happened there. The whole
second season is like when he starts turning on Barry, when Barry
Yeah.
starts like basically neglecting him, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're going to neglect me? Okay, well, guess what? I'm going to tell everyone what you've done.
Yeah,
I'm
and
going to let everyone know who you are. Like,
and Fuchs starts working with amateurs that and that just goes all to hell, and it actually winds him up in police custody, having to basically try perform a sting on Barry, which the father figure like morals kicked in then and that, because he was always kind of trying to protect Barry even during that whole thing, trying to get him on tape and not talking about murder with the cop, which led to the whole Ronnie Lilly episode. Oh my God.
which was my favorite episode of the show until season 3.
Yeah.
And then it was replaced with the biker gang.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fuchs.
That episode is just perfection.
But Fuchs did think of himself as Barry's, surrogate father, and that despite the fact that he used him constantly, and he himself was a user. Throughout
Yeah.
this series, he was constantly using him and manipulating him emotionally, and pretty much in peril of jail all the time. And that remember when he burst in on the party.
Yep.
When Barry was going to give Sally the computer, just just to remind him of that about his obligations.
I just think a lot of it was that he was that kind of father figure that was like angry that Barry didn't accept what he was doing for him. You don't see the things I'm doing for you. You don't see the love I have for you. And when he would get upset about that, he would lash out and retaliate.
Agreed.
And then it's not until season 4 that he finally realizes that I shouldn't lash out. I shouldn't retaliate. If I am this father figure, I need to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
It takes him until the end of the series to figure it out, but he does.
All due credit to Fuchs in that he had a difficult situation in that because Barry himself let's face it, Barry was a little bit delusional.
He was also very selfish, which
very. He never really saw himself as the villain in his story at any point. And what villain does
though, right?
No. Exactly. Which makes him one of the most compelling.
What wouldn't you do for your family, Hawk?
Never sees himself as the villain. Never can understand why people aren't seeing things the way he's seeing them. Barry is incredibly narcissistic, which is a point that they don't really outwardly say and play on, but it's there the entire time. He is in this for himself and his own happiness.
Yeah. What was I going to say?
Fuchs.
Fuchs, yeah. I really don't know what more to say about Fuchs. His transformation was also one of the best character arcs I've ever seen, especially considering it happened in episode 7, I believe.
Into the Raven?
The Raven, yeah.
What do you think something happened to him in prison that made him more of a father figure?
No, I think in prison it's he got a huge reality check. As he said, he was beaten for days after Barry escaped by the guards who were trying to get some sort of information from him. But he wouldn't give up. He wouldn't give up anything, which was kind of incredible. But it earned him a new plateau of respect in prison. Which was very visible in him going to chow and that nobody would touch their food until he started.
Yeah.
I gotta just hand it out to Stephen Root for that character, man.
Right?
He's one of the most underestimated, underappreciated character actors out there because 100%. He is unrecognizable by the end of this because you look at the roles that he plays normally, bumbling buffoons. He plays Milton in Office Space. He's Bill Denner. He's Bill from King of the Hill. He's always the bumbling, fumbling idiot. And by the end of this, he was unrecognizable as this just absolute vicious monster.
His eyes in the last couple episodes where he would just stare that menacing stare was man, you. Not to mention he looked cut. He does look. He did look a lot buffer, coming through that gate.
He had that James Caan old man buff.
Yes,
kind of thing
that's
going
perfect.
On.
That's a perfect example.
Exactly. But you got to give it to Stephen Root. He's been a tremendous character actor for probably almost 4 decades now. And he's done he does very diverse roles in that. I remember he played a cop in Ghost.
He was in Ghost.
The Whoopi Goldberg movie.
Man,
he was in Ghost. Yeah, he played.
I'm glad you went with Whoopi Goldberg for that. The Whoopi Goldberg movie, not the Patrick Swayze movie.
Everybody remembers it for Whoopi. She won the Oscar for it.
You gotta say Whoopi Goldberg. Otherwise, we're going to be sitting here going, "Wait, is it Demi?"
That's fair.
He, as I would say, he can also play commanding characters in that, and still play off the comedic elements that he's so famous for. In that, you guys fans of News Radio? Where he played
He was literally going to say that to me was the quintessential character for him. That was to me the perfect character for him to play until this show.
I know. I love that show. And there was this one, he basically ran through a marriage proposal like it was a business contract.
How many kids you want? 4. Oh, 2.
Yeah,
3?
2.
All right, 2.5. 2 boys and a girl? All right, settle.
That's how it goes, right? That's how it's supposed to happen.
Vacation in Hawaii? I was thinking Alaska. You stuck on that? Yeah. All right. Well, it was a pleasure doing business with you. Good luck to you in the future.
Amazing. Any final thoughts on Fuchs? He was perfect. Like every character in this
Yeah.
episode or in this series, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's move from one father figure to another and talk about Henry Winkler's Gene Cousineau, which in the finale in the movie version is played by Jim Cummings, also known as Winnie the Pooh. Gene Cousineau, the actor turned drama
Acting
teacher,
coach.
acting coach,
Yeah.
turned
actor,
acting
coach again.
acting coach, turned into.
I love the fact that like when he hits his new pinnacle of fame on the show is because he gets a television show of him as an acting coach.
Yeah.
Like he gets the documentary about him being an acting coach, and it's like that's how his break back into Hollywood is the exact same thing he's been doing for 10 years.
And it's funny because when he's this famous acting coach, he's also trying to redeem himself. Like he's trying to rebuild the bridges that he had burnt through Hollywood. And man, Henry Winkler also underrated. Like he everyone's like, oh, he's the Fonz. Obviously, like he's a good Fonz or person, but he's been working solidly since the what was that, the 60s?
No, it was
70s.
70s. 70s into the 80s. Like what? Like how long did Happy Days go?
It feels like forever.
Like 9-10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Until and
Around 10 years.
And as his character as the Fonz, he most famously created the whole thing about jumping the shark.
It's true. And
a lot of people that would be enough as far as like real career achievements and that. But no, he stuck it out. He plays great roles. He's been a comedic favorite for years, and that this role
super
was
dramatic,
groundbreaking for him.
It's
in terms of like drama and like and comedy.
And
it was perfect.
And like the movie showed him as this manipulative, like super evil genius, but in reality, he was very manipulative in the whole series. Like he always did stuff that would benefit him, which is sort of like a parallel to Barry.
That's I sort of saw it as like he and Fuchs were the antithesis of each other, whereas like Fuchs was outwardly evil, but always doing what was in Barry's best interest, always wanted to do in his best interest. Whereas Cousineau was outwardly very kind and nice, but always self-serving.
Yeah.
I
mean,
it's hard to talk about like everything.
It's so hard to talk about any character on the show being a good person or a bad person because
they're not.
They're all gray.
They're all a delicate balance. Like
I don't think any of them are good, other than maybe Janice. Janice was probably the most good person in the
Janice.
Janice
exactly. Oh my god. This is like one of those weird perfect storms of narcissists who collide with each other.
Keep going. I will be right back.
And the weird thing is like it's how profoundly they affect each other's lives, and that like Barry's introduction to Gene and that allowed Janice to come into his life, which was like that one slice of happiness that kind of was like pushing him towards being that good person that he could be, but he wasn't for many, many years.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Barry has to murder her, or at least he thinks he had to. And then because of that, and the guilt Barry felt over that, and having to do that to his like this new father figure, this person who's trying to like improve his life and give him a positive outlet for all that anger and everything that was inside him when he came back from the war. And then he starts trying extra hard in the second season, trying to get him back into the actors, finally opening up to him, and that especially regarding the war, which again was taken by a bunch of actors and completely like mistold.
I didn't remember a lot of the earlier stuff. I went on and watched a video yesterday, just kind of like one of those little like 15-20 minute summaries of the first 3 seasons, just so I didn't have to go back and rewatch and cram it all in like the night before. And I had completely forgotten about that whole aspect of him and being dishonorably discharged, like in him, like he actively worked to save his friend's life and then was so angry afterwards that he just shot a civilian.
Those
Like,
two scenes were
yeah,
so those ones like in my head that's like that's really where the show kind of took on a level of like
yeah,
dark dramedy for me, and that especially the first one where it's like as a sniper he killed 3 people in that,
yeah,
like at a distance
yeah,
that like was amazing. What was it, 900 yards?
yeah.
He shot three
Every
people.
everything up until I think everything up until the point where he killed his friend in the car was this is a show with a cute premise. That was when the show suddenly went, okay, now this is its own thing. Like this is now something completely new and real. Like we're in it now.
But there were such great character moments of character for him in that, because like what happened after the like he was after the incident with the 3 men and the sniper rifle, just absolute praise, that love bombing from his and he was just like on top of the world, Barry Berkman, you know, eh, which is so telling for Barry because he's a guy looking for praise from just about anywhere in that, and he finds it in like in being a great killer.
Yeah.
Um,
I am interested in what do you think about
Well, you're Portugal.
and what do you think about
did you get?
Gene's the evolution of Gene and Barry's relationship, because he is very manipulative. Gene, he saw Barry as a sort of an up and coming actor. He could unlock some things like you said about Barry's past,
Yeah.
but he kept on
Yeah.
pushing parts that he wouldn't. I feel like he
Well,
did do
well,
the acting class.
Everything that Barry was trying so hard to suppress
Yeah.
about his time in the military, he's got this guy that he adores standing here going like, no, no, let it out, let it out, let it out. And it's that constant battle in him, like, I don't want to, but you're making me like
Yeah, and it's like it's like I know vets have like some of the most hardcore worst stories of like war that anybody could experience, but in this case, like Barry was a villain. He told Gene about the worst thing he ever did, where he was basically a villain
Yeah.
in his own story.
And Gene's like,
And
yeah,
Gene-
use that. Yeah,
and-
we should tell this story.
and
to
Use
all
it,
the
never,
Gene's-
but never
yeah.
tell anybody else about it. But use
all
that.
Gene saw that was is just as an opportunity to like make you a success, and maybe I can leech on that success.
And
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
He was a leech.
Remember how excited he got with when Barry showed up with a script for swim instructors?
Yeah.
15 pages. This is heavy.
well, like remember just like the fact that once he tells him, I know you killed Janice, I know you killed my girlfriend. The only thing that makes it right for him in the meantime is to get him an acting role.
Mhm.
Like get me back in, and it's like, okay, well I got you this walk-on part on this show, and then he turns it into a series regular, and it's like, okay, well I guess we kind of balances out now. And it was almost like you like, thank God he went back to the being angry about that, but it just the whole sense of like, I'll let this whole thing go about you killing the woman I loved if you get me an acting role.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you got to consider, like remember when Barry put him in the trunk of the car and,
Yeah.
and drove him around for the entire night, and then showed up at his house after he had escaped, and basically told him like if if he didn't let Barry help him fix it,
Yeah.
then
He'd kill his son.
grandson and son were going bye bye.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
That was I felt the most sorry for Gene. That moment on the couch when it was panning back, it was cutting back and forth between their two faces.
Yeah.
There's Barry there. I love you, Mr. Kusino.
Mm.
Do you love me?
That was terrifying. Like terrifying.
That was terrifying.
And then we
Ugh.
moved to the final season which fast forwards about 7-8 years from
Which is
midway.
Have you ever seen a show done that? Do 2 fast forwards.
No.
I know.
Mid-season, it time jumps like 10 years, and then the final episode time jumps like another almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Like,
It
just for
was
just for
intense.
half the episode. Like,
So Gene is coming back to LA to stop a film about Barry Berkman being made because, justice for Janice, his girlfriend. He doesn't want
Yeah.
her death to be exploited. And then an agent's like, you know what? Daniel Day-Lewis wants to play you.
Yeah.
And there's this
I
quick
know.
turn. What did you
And-
think about this very
They had,
yeah.
that
Go.
was just it was quintessential Cousineau. It was, the justice for Janice was great until the fame from that started to wane, and then now all of a sudden, like, this movie is like rearing its ugly head back around, and like, it's like I'm adamantly against that. Oh, really? This guy likes me, huh? Like, oh, and Mark Wahlberg wants to play Barry. Like,
It
I'm
had
willing to listen to hear this out. Meanwhile, in his head, he's screaming, "This is what I want!" Like,
Yeah. I I,
it had
I
to be
can't even.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Of course. There's
No, well,
not. You know
there
what?
was nothing that could have drawn him out like
It was
that.
Mark Wahlberg that made him sit up though, which was very confusing to me. Right?
I
When they're
it
like,
was
Maybe
Daniel Day
that's
Lewis got the meeting. Mark Wahlberg got the movie made in
yeah,
his head. Like
yeah.
that was the clincher.
yeah,
That's the two sides of Crucible, right? Like, the attraction of like high art, like, Daniel Day-Lewis could play me,
Yeah,
but then like,
but then
the kind of
Mark,
the glamour of Mark Wahlberg
it's
the
too.
money,
well,
right?
no, I think it was more of like he was looking at this is hitting on all cylinders. Daniel Day Lewis, I get arguably the greatest actor alive to play me, and Mark Wahlberg is going to make sure that this movie makes $2 billion
Bank. Yeah,
dollars.
exactly. Man. Um, then we get his end, right? He kills Barry with the gun that
With
Rip
the Rip
Torn,
Torn gun.
and he gets his fame from killing Barry, which is really sad because Barry was gonna turn himself in to save
Mhm.
Jean.
Literally saying out loud, "I'm here to turn myself in." Bang.
Yeah. Thoughts on his final scene?
Okay, yeah. We
Take
were
the
argue.
headphones out, Eric.
Yeah. You might have to take the headphones out for this part.
Yeah,
We were
this is the part where I argue that
Just
he
give
was
me
a
a
fan
thumbs
of The
up when I can come
Departed.
back.
Yeah,
okay.
this
Yeah,
is the part I argue is where he's a fan of The Departed, and just getting that like pure shock value moment.
sure.
Yeah,
Like like him, Leonardo DiCaprio getting shot in the head in that elevator was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen.
yeah.
Since Scorsese did the same thing earlier in his career, and that with Goodfellas.
Mhm.
You say Departed, I say Goodfellas when Tommy met his end, and I base it on Tommy meeting his end because of like, as I had told you and Eric
But
earlier, and that like Tommy was a big loudmouth throughout the
yeah,
entire movie, cursing, swearing, threatening this, and his final words were a little whimper of an "oh no."
so maybe it was like a nice little combination of both. Because I mean, there's no shock value behind Nikki dying in Goodfellas. Like, I mean, he was set up that entire movie that he was gonna have a horrible end at the end somehow.
I saw
But
it when
DiCaprio,
I saw it when
but
I was like
DiCaprio was
15, so I was shocked when that happened because for me it came out of nowhere
yeah,
because the whole story about him, like, and what he did that to earn that,
yeah,
kind of frittered away with like the decades, right?
yeah. But DiCaprio going out like in a shock like that was like that was so maybe there is like a combination because one of the things that he has. Oh, we'll let Eric back in.
Okay.
Because I mean, he's talked a lot. Like I've mentioned, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts that he's a part of lately, and he's talked a lot about his influences and the kind of the genres that he grew up on, and how he's really been pushing like a lot of genre films on his own children lately, and like really getting them hooked and seeing how they're lighting up to like these older movies that not necessarily today's audiences would go for, and he's realizing that there's something inherently entertaining about the way that they were made, and that's what he's brought to Barry. So I can't help but wonder if that scene definitely wasn't in some way influenced from Scorsese.
Most definitely
Like,
was.
yeah,
He's very generous about like his influences and that.
hmm
And the nice thing about Bill Hader as just a person and that is how well rounded he is as
hmm
an actor in his influences and that. A lot of people don't
yeah,
go beyond past 1970 in their film
and
watching these days. And like Bill, he loves like 50s
oh yeah, like
musicals, dramas, comedies.
he's gone on record that like he is anything like he loves anything like Hitchcockian, Jimmy Stewart, anything from like that era. Like he's like the one podcast I was just listening to recently was I think it was him again on Conan O'Brien, Conan's podcast. And they were talking about how like he was getting his kids into watching like Rear Window and Vertigo
Hmm.
and all of like the old Jimmy Stewart Hitchcockian movies and stuff like that. And he would say like he's like the reason I'm into those is because I used to watch those when I was a kid with all my friends. Like those were the movies that we like would sneak and watch at night when our parents didn't know, and everyone's watching it for like the thriller aspects in this, and he's like, and I'm watching it for the cinematography, and I'm watching it for the shots and I love the way
Rear
that like
Window, beautifully.
he specifically said in Rear Window the one shot that really stood out to him was when Jimmy Stewart's wife is looking through the apartment,
Oh yes.
and the guy comes in and does that turn and looks directly where Jimmy Stewart's eye line is, letting him know, I know what you're doing, and I know that you're behind this.
Yeah.
He's like, it's that scene. He's like, I wanted moments like that peppered throughout this show.
Yeah.
Where where we just stop, hold the shot, and just let things slowly play out in front of you.
Did you guys? Oh, sorry. One last
go
thing.
for it.
Did you guys ever hear about his audition for SNL? When you audition for SNL, it includes a variety of things, but also it includes you doing 3 impersonations, right?
Yeah.
One of his impersonations was a skit he wrote. Basically, it's called James Mason buying a baker's dozen of donuts with an expired coupon.
Yes, you showed me
How much is it without the coupon? Oh.
I think he did that on a Conan episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He talked about it. It's hilarious, but also it's pure Bill, you know.
Yeah.
It's like he finds like a way to translate the old into the new in this funny medium.
And you can see just from the impersonations that he's most known for. Like he doesn't do like everyday nowadays people. He's known for Alan Alda, Al Pacino, James Mason, like he's known for all of like those old like Dateline NBC guys.
Yeah.
Yes,
like Keith Morrison.
Keith Morrison.
There's a video of him getting to hang out with Keith Morrison at NBC Studios while they were doing the voiceover recording for one of the Dateline episodes. And it's brilliant because he is literally just like the whole time just like I love you, Jim. I love you so much. Like, please tell me everything. Like,
that's his other thing. He's also a true crime junkie, and he loves all those shows. I remember him talking on an interview about this show called Snapped, which is usually about a woman in that who, ends up killing her entire family. But at every point in the episode, and that there's the announcer says, and that's when she snapped.
I've heard him say that phrase, which is amazing. I didn't know where it was from. That's so funny. Oh man. Yeah, Bill Hader. When we talk about Barry, he'll be the last we talk about. He's brilliant. He's also a really good person. Do you know why he doesn't sign things anymore? He doesn't sign merchandise anymore or do signatures.
Really?
Because he did Star Wars. He did The Force Awakens. He did the voice for BB-8, right? He played with a little board. And
he'll even say that he loosely did that.
He loosely did that. But
yeah.
There would be fans that would be like everywhere, just be like, can you sign this, blah, blah, blah. And then one time he was filming and not filming. He was somewhere out late and he went out of this building at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And this father was with his son, and he was like pushing his son to get him to sign something. And he's like, that's not good for this kid. So now he just he doesn't want to deal with parents doing that to kids. I'm like, that's a good person there.
I think I've told you guys this story before. I was so bummed like when I lost the opportunity. I just missed the opportunity to meet him.
No.
Literally he was 2 blocks away from my apartment for filming for a while.
So
he was in chapter 2 was filming at the Scottish Rite here in Hamilton, which was about a couple blocks down from my apartment at the time.
Yeah. And
not only that, but my brother worked at the Scottish Rite. And anytime they had filmings there, he was usually their go-to guy. And he would be like, you're going to be in here. If they have any questions, you're going to show them around, where they can and can't go, answer any questions, lead them around. He ended up, he was essentially like an assistant to Guillermo del Toro during Crimson Peak for a couple weeks.
So cool.
And it was this, and he and I always joke about it because I'm like, it's 10 years after. That was my job at the Tivoli. Was anytime movies came in to film there, I was the go-to guy that would walk everyone around. But so when it got announced that Chapter 2 was filming there, he and I are both big Bill Hader fans, and we were both super excited because he's like, "Oh my god, I'm going to get to work with him for a couple weeks. This is amazing." And then I'm in my head going and you're going to sneak me in and again, Crimson Peak. You got me on set for Crimson Peak. You're going to get me in on this one. And there was, because the first movie was such a huge hit, they basically skeleton the place. Yeah, and it was, if you are not 100% required to be in that building, you are out. and unfortunately they deemed my brother to be non-essential for
Oh,
that time.
Ah.
So he was essentially kicked out of work for 2 weeks while they filmed, and I guess I was like, so I'm like, well, I guess that means I'm not going to get to go in there. And I went down there and I hung around and I tried to like watch some of the filming. It was all interior. I was like, hopefully maybe I can catch them like coming out to like a trailer or something, but no dice.
no, no. Oh man, you should have just hung out in Dundas where they were filming. You probably would have had a better luck getting.
I didn't know about that one. I just knew about the right.
Yeah, they filmed in Ancaster, Dundas, the right, so many places in Hamilton. You can't even name them all, because that movie was just Hamilton. Oh man, who were we talking about? Gene? Gene was with the last person.
I believe we were talking about Gene. Yeah, I know. I had some stuff to say about Gene. I can't remember now.
It's okay.
Because we were talking about like, but like the consequence, the sequence of events that actually led up to it, like everything was like laid at his feet, like, Barry hiding the money in the rafters that the police found, and then like with the Chechnya mob, which kind of, Barry giving him the $250,000 as a makeup, and that was the money he took from,
and he didn't have to take that money, but he did.
No, after planting the bomb under the house
for it.
Yeah. Oh, the bomb app. Oh my god, I forgot about that. Oh man, that was so funny.
When he's on the phone with them, I just love that he's calling up a bomb company, and they literally have like a proper, hello, how can I help you? Have you tried doing this?
Is your Bluetooth on?
Yeah,
maybe you should turn it off.
The latest update on the software.
Oh my god, it's so good.
That's the comedy of the show that I love. It's just that just bringing such an absurd thing into a realm of reality in that way is
in the final the second last episode when the rocket misses, and then they're like, "Where's this? Can you relook the next one then?" Oh, we're saving money.
That's another thing that I talk about where he says that he just loves those shots where you just keep a still camera. Just keep it, don't cut, and just let everything chaos happen around you. And that entire shot from when he misses to when they try to get back in the car to when all of the army are swarming, all one shot, just beautifully choreographed.
And then Fuchs is on the phone, and you're not even seeing anything because NoHo Hank is falling down a hill, and you're hearing it.
You're hearing him fall down the hill on the phone.
How about the final battle between Fuchs and NoHo and the whole thing with the grenade?
Yeah, that was a great it was a great
again shot. Still shot showing three men being exploded by a grenade.
I think my favorite still shot of the entire time though, anytime they did it was, like I said, my favorite episode is the biker gang episode in season 3. Just because it is, and I couldn't pinpoint what it was about the car chase sequence in that really stood out to me as so brilliant. And somebody just mentioned, it's like, did you notice there was no music?
Yes, I was just about to say the entire thing was silent.
Anytime there's like a big action sequence like this and anything, they take the opportunity to crank up the sound effects and add the music and just make it. In this one, when it's just like, no, cut down the sound effects, tone it down, cut all the music out. Don't do cuts. Show long, extended shots of everything happening. And the shot of him just riding down on that dirt bike on the middle of the highway, holding the bag of donuts, and like while being pursued by a bunch of bikers like with machine guns. And then the final shot when he gets to the auto dealership, and it's just pulls that final shot, and then when the guy who works inside the dealership finally runs out carrying a gun and shoots the guy off the roof to kill him.
What makes that sequence even better now is looking at the last season when Fuchs's gang are talking about the Fast and Furious movies, because that is like the total opposite.
Is it Transformers or Fast and the Furious? I mean, they could probably put both of them together. I mean, they're
very loud, but you need a sound bar. Oh no, even without the sound bar, it's still very loud movies.
No, that's what I love is what that entire conversation is them trying to find out ways to keep Fuchs's girlfriend and her daughter from knowing that there's murders happening around them. They feel so bad that they had to witness the murder and beheading of those 4 military guys.
It starts off with Fuchs asking, "So what are you upset about?" Well, it's the beheading. Oh
It's like, is
man.
it that you had to see that? Like, what, guys? What can we do next time? Like, could we like call ahead and like get them out of the room or something?
Maybe we'll
Like,
take him out for dinner,
a
a
nice
nice
meal,
dinner. Yeah.
a nice meal, which was the name of the episode.
uh,
We were talking about the lack of music in the episode, in the series as a whole, actually.
mhm.
But when they do use music, it is amazing.
mm,
The Wizard,
yep.
the Black Sabbath song off of the second cut from their first album, and they use it for the reveal
Of the
of Fuchs
Raven.
coming out, the transformation of Fuchs from Fuchs into the Raven, uh, and one of the best sequences I've seen as far as editing.
I
Him meet the scene at Coffee Bean and that when he meets his girlfriend and that writing the thing on the Raven on his cup.
I love it because I had no idea that that's what they were doing there. I thought it was legitimately just they were going to set up a joke about the Raven on the coffee cup, and then the next
yeah.
shot is her in the car
Yeah,
with
that was
him
so
with his arm
brilliant.
around her.
Um, I think we're gonna end this episode with our favorite sequence of this show. I think that so don't spoil it if you if you don't have to.
Okay.
We talked about Kusuno's tragic, you know, his personal struggles, which led to all of the shit happening. Basically, he's the issue. Let's talk about Barry's love interest of Sally Reed, the aspiring actress who's as narcissistic as most actresses we assume would be in Hollywood, or at least the ones that are failed and then see their friends become famous, and they just struggle and end up becoming the teacher. What do you think of Sally Reed's journey through this show?
I know some people who talk about how, like, Sally Reed as a character is probably, they don't like her on Barry and that, but
I
the
think that was
fact
the
that, like,
point.
the fact that, like, we don't like her and some people even go as far as they hate her is all due to, like, Sarah Goldberg's performance as Sally Reed over the last 4 seasons.
Brilliant.
Has been brilliant. Yeah. Narcissistic, she started we see her act like kind of like that most naive of her phase and that it's like she's an actress with some talent
Yeah.
who's at that precipice right before running into Barry. Jean is like obviously a huge influence on her life. But she like the monologues that she pulls off like throughout the seasons have been incredible. There was one in season 2 in particular when Barry and her are exchanging the lines from swim instructor. She's helping him with his lines, and she goes off on a like it had to be like a 2-minute rant. Like it felt so long and that, and she's going through like pretty much every emotion I can think of in the spectrum of that. Before Bill concludes the scene with that joke about eating a shit pie.
Oh yeah. Oh,
When I saw that, I was like, she has to. This is like a role of a lifetime for like any actress in that. But Sarah Goldberg just owns that character.
and there are moments where you're like, okay, maybe she is starting to try and redeem herself, like when she became the acting teacher, and then she had that student that got a Marvel movie.
Right.
And then you see her just try and
Just literally step in front of her and try to take the role from her.
Oh, it was so good. Like that turn was it was brilliant.
That was the thing. That was the thing that I always liked about her throughout. And now that you see it in retrospect, going back through the whole series, is that she was always destined to be a coach or a teacher, because it's always when she's finding success for herself is when she finds ways to just absolutely blow it up. And it's when she's trying to find success for other people that the best of her is coming out. But unfortunately, it's like as soon as she gets that success for someone, it destroys her and it makes her want to ruin that person. Like she does everything she can to bring out the best in Barry on those scenes where he's like trying to, and he's pulling those thoughts of like his time in the military. And she's trying to get the best performance because she wants him to make her shine. And then it ends up being like, no, he ends up like blowing her out of the freaking water with his performance instead, which makes her angry. Like, it's like, no, you're supposed to be the helping me here. Like,
to be fair, I mean, she has had as a character, she's had an incredible arc.
Yeah.
From starting out getting like using like pieces of her personal life and that to try and create like a kind of a portfolio for herself, but operating on a lie, considering like she lied about the events of what happened. She talks
Yeah.
about like being in that abusive relationship and that, and how she fought back and she told the guy no and that, but she never really did.
Nope.
No, it was always in her imagination. From that, leapfrogging on that lie into some sort of streaming television series, which she's a writer and a director and a star of. Like, it's a dream of a lifetime.
Yeah. And again, you see the relationship where she has that younger girl who's on the cast, and how she's very much like mentorish for her. And everything, until that girl starts getting a little bit of success, then suddenly there's friction there. And that's always her MO in the show, is like to lift everyone up, but keep them just below me.
Yeah.
Oh, what's her face? The assistant.
Darcy
Carden. Yeah, Darcy Carden.
Not a robot.
Yeah.
Who outplays her in that, especially after the streaming service kind of eats up, just basically like cancels her show. How does a streaming service cancel a show?
I love the excuse too. It's just like
the algorithm.
But I was trending. It's like, yeah, but once he started trending, people didn't really want us. Like, they didn't really like what they were seeing, so we took you off the trending. And when you're taking off the trending, it's done.
I had a Steve moment when I saw that scene with that producer. Like, I kind of thought they were taking a little bit of a stab at Kathleen Kennedy with that character.
I could
especially
see that.
especially with that last line, and that it's like, if there's one thing we've learned in all this time in Hollywood, is that nobody really knows what works except the algorithm.
So we do end up seeing a time jump in the final season. And Sally Reed is on the run with Barry. They have a child, and this is where I think some of her best acting is when she's a waitress and she's just an alcoholic and just like being the worst. What do you think of her in the time jump? I know me and Hawk have talked about that scene
first.
in the bathroom. Man, no, you guys go.
Oh,
that's the scene that I was going right to.
Go for it, Brent.
Oh, it's just, I mean, like, that's just such a horrible sequence, so uncomfortable to watch. Like, because the whole time you're just you don't know what she's going to do, and every time you think you know what she's going to do, she goes in opposite direction, and it's just like I understand you're going through torture, you're going through hell with the guy that you're with right now, and you want your old life back and everything like that, but it's just like, this is a woman making every wrong decision in life. Like,
she's perpetually drawn to bad people.
Yeah.
Like, even the ex-boyfriend, even though she lied about certain things and that he was a piece of shit. But for some reason she is drawn to Barry. Even if she thinks the relationship is like, totally kind of one-sided, with her being like up here above him and that, like, she's still somehow instinctively drawn to very bad people.
And I think it's not necessarily so much she's drawn to bad people as she's drawn to people that make her feel better about herself. She's drawn to people that make her feel like her life is better than it is.
Is that because it's a result of that abusive relationship that she had earlier?
I think it does go back like a lot further. We meet her parents in season 4. We see the dad, who's just kind of, he seems like a good guy, glowing and devoted to her, but at the same time, he doesn't really listen to her. He's just trying to make her feel better, while the mother just basically berates her and tells her about how bad her life choices have been.
And did you get the sense from like watching it that she just like, up until like obviously the time jump at the end, when John was like 8 years old, did you get the sense that like for that entire time that he was 0 to 8 years old, she wanted nothing to do with him?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. That it was I regret you. Like, but I can't say it. Like,
this is the thing about the wig. She constantly wears a wig for no reason in front of him as well as other people. It's because she's playing a part. She's not being a mother in that. She's playing the part of a mother, and she's not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah.
I know there was talk of during that whole sequence where there's a home invasion at their house in the future. It's hard to guess the first future, not the second future.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And then the whole car sequence where it's like hitting the house, and people were like, did that really happen, or did she just go on a psychotic episode in the house where because she was drunk and she was becoming sober, so
what I pieced together is that, like, Eric and I talked about this, but all those voices that she was hearing from outside the other room, and that it was the guy in season 3, the one who was trying to kill her, who she stabbed through the back of the head, and that, and what'd you put in my eye, and that, and you F and B, and that. That she was hearing him. She never got over that. She never had time to process that whole thing. And Barry leaving her alone with the kid and her alcohol problem. She was having one, and that line Eric reminded me of. Please God, give mommy the strength not to leave the house.
Oh my God, yes.
That was because that meant that she couldn't go out and get alcohol. So what she was experiencing was called delirium tremors, which are vivid hallucinations from alcohol withdrawal.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know where else we can go with Sally. Like, she's such a tragic character, and I keep on going back to that last scene where we see her driving with her flowers, and she keeps looking at it, and I'm not quite sure what it means. Like, there's a deeper meaning there, but I just don't. I've only seen the episode once, 1.5 times, so. But I keep on thinking about it. Is she happy in her final life? Is she thinking of Barry when she gets these?
I don't think she is.
Flowers?
I'm not sure. It confused me how she got through with these 8 years. Like, obviously alcohol helped a lot, but what was she thinking at that moment when she decided to run away with Barry? She had just gotten an offer to be like what, $70,000 a year in that for acting coaching and that, which is like nothing to sneeze at. It's like,
it's not. But again, it's not. That's not the fame. It's not money she wanted. It's the fame. It's the recognition. She wanted that. She was always clamoring for that. It's the same thing as Kuzno.
Yeah.
Always clamoring for their name and lights. Like, that's the most important thing in the world to them.
Yeah, but at the same time, the decision she made on a dime, again, bad decisions and drawn to bad men, I guess, in that. But like, she stuck it out 8 years. And
I kind of wonder.
There was that moment, like when they're after the events with like Hank and like Fuchs played out, and they actually got safe to a hotel room. I thought, okay, they're going back on the run together. It was after Barry, like she talked about turning herself in because she had epiphany in that. How could she not? She placed this child in a life-threatening situation and that, and even though she was a terrible mother to him and that, she still her kid. But when Barry said that, I don't think that's the plan for God has for her.
Oh my God.
He substituted one authority figure for the ultimate authority figure, in that
reminds me of when he's listening to the podcast.
Midwestern,
oh my God.
The podcast. Oh my God.
The podcast sequence was killing me. When he's like, okay, not this. Is this the one that's going to redeem me? Like, going to kill these? Nope, not this one. The next one.
All these Christian podcasts and that about right and wrong and sin and when it wasn't a sin and when it's like that's all they knew. And then like that with that podcast voiced by Bill Burr, in case anybody didn't know, about an ex-hockey player who may have accidentally killed somebody on the ice. He's like, God put that anger in my heart, and I followed the path.
Brilliant.
That's the one.
I wonder how much of the show is Bill Hader's kind of like just poking and prodding at his disdain for Hollywood in a way.
Oh, very much so. Like that, the whole final sequence was him, saying about how like they'll take a true story, which could probably be easily researched. Maybe not easily, considering a lot of the people involved are dead at this point, but they still managed to screw it up. I remember feeling the exact same way after watching The Iceman with Michael Shannon, which is about a contract killer. Back in the 70s, worked for. He was brutal. Hollywood did a movie in that, and they totally softened up every single thing that happened to him and the things that he did.
Oh my god! How
But there
how
was
can you
interviews with the
how do you
Anyway,
soften
Came
up
out
a
at a time when
killer?
there was
Like,
Yeah, I know, but it
oh,
comes down to a
okay.
time where there's like a glorification of things like that. Like when we're getting all these Jeffrey Dahmer miniseries
yeah.
and like the staircase, and we get all of these miniseries about like these horrible people doing horrible things, and they become like celebrities to people. So now it's like they almost have to soften their image a little bit to make them more acceptable to people. But because God forbid we hate something.
Yeah. In this particular instance, it was the fact that like some of the stuff the guy did was just like you cannot even really talk about on a podcast. But for Hollywood, it's like okay, some guy made him angry in a bar. This was a true story associated with this guy, the Iceman. This guy made him really angry at a bar. And he just like when he caught up to him, I don't want to say what he did. I'll tell you guys after. In the movie, there's just like he just opens up the door and stabs the guy a couple times real quick.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Uh,
I look forward to hearing what the real story is. Sort of. I don't know. It might be a little morbid. I'm sure it will be morbid.
it'll be terrible.
All in all, I feel like Sally's character, like the way she plays off Barry, is just phenomenal, and how she feeds off him and he feeds off her, and man, that last sequence of her like driving away from her son with the flowers and just sort of going back to this unimportant life was heartbreaking but very good.
I think
Let's
she, at that point she had really learned learned in that it's like if she this guy obviously seemed nice but she knew better. It's like my instincts always drive me to the same place and that, and she said no. In fact, at that point she was a mother more than anything else, and that she's
it was quite a turn.
she seemed yeah.
Let's move over to probably one of the best characters in the show. That is NoHo Hank. He's my favorite character.
Leader of a Chechnyan military unit, and arguably the nicest, most kind character on the show.
I think that's what's amazing about NoHo Hank is that he's this lieutenant that has dreams of being the boss, but is like the nicest person you'll ever meet. And Anthony Kerrigan, his performance was brilliant. Like it was from the get-go, you just saw the energy come off the screen. You're just like, this is a character that demands attention, and it is one that you're rooting for the whole time. And he's not a good person. He kills people, or at least he sends people to try and kill people. And then
he kills people.
He does too. Yeah, he does.
Don't forget, like the final season, the sand tunnel.
Yeah. And then, what do we want?
Again, another static still shot the entire.
Oh my god, that was
time.
terrifying too, and it made me want to like it. It made
because you knew what was coming the whole time, and it was just like gut wrenching, and then it finally happens, and you're like, "This is fucking cool."
Yeah. What do you think of Anthony Kerrigan's portrayal of NoHo Hank?
In a comedy already full of star performances, like this is on a level all its own, and that Anthony Kerrigan as NoHo Hank has been like one of my favorite characters in that. Somebody I kind of genuinely love in the show. It's like just in a show full of narcissists that we kind of we want to see what happens, but we don't really like. I genuinely love NoHo Hank and that because of the positivity and like the kind of the vibrancy he always wanted to bring to everything, even criminality.
It's like I said, like I love the way that they've created this dichotomy in all the characters where like, they're either good people doing bad things or they're bad people doing good things, or you don't know which one they are. And the whole time that he is a good person doing bad things for the wrong reasons, but which seem right in his head. But despite that, like he is the one like real bad guy on the show that is just so overwhelmingly lovable. Like it's you can't not love him in this show. He's just so sweet and endearing and like welcoming to everyone around him. Like he's the kind of person who you figured like he's going to invite you into his home where he's probably going to kill you. But you know what? He's going to ask you to take your shoes off at the door, please. And he's going to offer you your favorite beverage, and he's going to serve you a nice meal first, and he's going to take care of it. Then he's going to kill you.
NoHo Hank.
Oh, Hank. I'm not even sure what to say.
There's the thing that I found interesting about him is that from the get go, he really liked Barry and he thought that they were best friends. And this relationship was really fraught because Barry only cared about himself. Whereas, every most of the opportunities, like we see this with Fuchs and we see this with Noah Hank, is that they're trying to help Barry, but Barry doesn't really care about them. And that's sort of
Well, like Hank was the one character on the show that knew who Barry was and what he did and was willing to help him get out.
yeah.
Nobody else was. Everybody kept trying to pull him back in for their own selfish reasons. And Noah was like, you know what? I'd like you to keep doing this, but you don't want to. No problem. Do this one last job for me. Here's a pin signifying that our deal is done. You go and you live your life. He was
Yeah,
the
but
only character in the show to let him go.
right. But again, he was another character who manipulated Barry. As lovable as he is and as funny as his character is, and that, like, he could bring out the darkness like on a heartbeat. And that after that scene at the Banana Republic where Barry was working in that, when NoHo came in with like the blonde wig,
It's me, it's Noho.
and Barry said, "Get out of here, you fucking idiot."
Yeah.
That scene when he confronted him later on in the parking lot and threatened to like out Barry to his acting buddies and his girlfriend and tell everybody exactly who he was, and that, like, bone chilling. And like, Anthony Carrigan had a good experience with that. He did he played Victor Zsasz in Gotham.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I didn't. Wow. Okay. Okay. I would be remiss if I did not talk about the best personal relationship on this show, and that's between Christabel and NoHo Hank. The relationship I didn't know was going to happen, but I really wanted to when I saw them on screen together. And I had hoped, and then when it happened, I was like, perfect. But this this very romantic yet tragic relationship, because Christabel really wanted to go legit, more or less. Corner the market with cement.
Imported sand.
Imported
sand for making better bricks for construction, which is kind of brilliant when you think about it. But yeah, like Cristobal had his eye on, like, turning both of them legit and actually bringing other gangsters in on it to turn them legit.
Yeah.
And he
Which
really
they were
wanted
successfully
this to happen.
doing. Like,
yeah.
And
Hank
Hank was on board in that. Like, he had a few speed bumps in that. For some reason, he felt the need to break Barry out of prison.
I feel like
when he found out that Barry was
quite
talking to the
possibly
FBI.
my favorite cameo of the entire series.
Which one?
Fred Armisen as one of the mercenaries.
The FBI agent.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
He's gonna kill me.
Here to kill me.
Yeah, that guy's gonna kill me. I don't know how, but he's
check him.
He's gonna
check him. He's got a weapon on him.
The guy in the ceiling too. Like,
this also brings up one of the funniest aspects of the show is how incompetent the law enforcement is throughout the entire show. Remember the first season with the whole thing with the lipstick camera and that they found?
Oh my god. Yeah.
And the text trying to decode it and that. Okay, well, you start 001, 002, 003. What happened? It locked itself out.
Oh my god. Yeah.
There's been so many of those little funny moments involving law. Do you remember, like, when Barry escaped from prison and Gene was talking to the DA about it? He's like, is there any chance he's going to come back and hurt me? And the guy's like, we only see that kind of behavior from ex-military types. And he's like, Barry is ex-military. Oh.
Man, this show. Back to Christabel and NoHo though.
Yes.
What do you think about the relationship and the sadness of how it ended?
I loved it because it felt like in portrayals of, like, gay relationships in television, this one felt so honest. Like, there was that shot of them just in bed, just watching Netflix or so, like, American Idol on the laptop after having sex, and it was like, and then making lattes, and I was like, they're just so perfect together, and that's just such an honest looking relationship. This is exactly what.
I just love how they created this parallel, like, their relationship as a metaphor for, like, bringing gangs together.
Unity.
Like
Right?
it's they like the way that like everything about like their business and what they were trying to achieve and like bringing like the Chechenian armies and the Bolivian armies together was all built around their relationship and how they got along in that, and like the parallels between them was just so fucking wonderful.
Yeah.
But then again, like all the
And
bloodshed that happened
like they tried to bring the what was that one like native
the
tribe that they were trying to bring in,
the
and like
Burmese gang.
Cristobal Burmese, yeah, Cristobal really wanted the Burmese because I think that they're going to be really good for us, but Noho was jealous of the leader and what's going on between the two of you, and
Yeah.
I don't like
No,
how close you are getting together, so we need to
and
stop this.
and he was also definitely afraid of Esther. I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
we all were. Remember
Yeah.
Esther?
She was
Like just
amazing.
willing to throw like a perfect, like, this is potentially something very good, very lucrative for them, but I'm going to throw it away because I don't like the way that my boyfriend is talking to this person.
Oh, speaking of like their relationship, how about the fact that like Hank saved like Christabel at the end of season 3 from his crazy ex-wife?
Yeah. Played by the amazing Crisia Bajos, who, I do voice acting stuff with. So she's she was amazing. And like that
Oh,
whole
the whole conversion
the,
therapy session.
this is yeah, the basement sequence where they're trying to escape, and oh my god, it's just
What the hell was in the next room? We never
Tiger.
got any closure.
He's a tiger.
yeah, I assume it was amazing. Um let's talk about the end of Christabel, because I think that's probably one of the most emotional sequences in the whole show, when he wants to leave, but NoHo Hank is like sort of begging him to not leave because he knows what's going to happen if he tries to step out the door. And then it happens. And you just see Hank going back inside. He knows what's going to happen. And he has a drink. I think he has a drink, right?
Something like that, and then
Anyway, he
one
comes
of the
towards the
guys
camera.
comes in
This
and basically gives him like the knowing
I really
it's
wanted him to
done
come
kind of.
back in, yeah. And this was
I
again
know.
another one shot that was beautifully done, and you're just seeing the full emotions of of NoHo pleading with him to stay, and then him realizing there's no hope.
Yeah, ordering him, like threatening him, doing everything, because he knows too much and he's not allowed to leave, which kind of brings up this like the difference in Hank and Christabel, and that is, as compatible as they were as like, lovers in the relationship where they were building in that, like Noah was still selfish in so many ways. I mean, Christabel, he destroyed, like I think he literally killed his entire family,
Mhm.
to be with Hank, you know. Like, and it's something Hank should have, done in reciprocity in that when the Chechens, fathers from the back in the old land and that came calling, but didn't have the balls to do it, or didn't have the whatever.
Balls works.
Yeah, no. Instead, he turns on this like the found family that he had created, in one of the most kind of like quietly horrific scenes I've ever seen. The silo.
The silo.
Ugh.
Brent, any thoughts on this? The silo or the death of Christabel?
I like I said, I did. I feel like the death of Cristobal was definitely like setting up the last little bit. Like I think that I feel like ever since that happened, that gave Noho permission to kind of carry a death wish on himself. To be like, because he was always throughout the entire series like if I want something done, you got to get someone else to do it and stay the hell away from it. You don't do anything yourself. You stay out of this. And that's how he's always been the entire time. And because he took a passive approach towards the end, that leads to Cristobal's death. So I think that final sequence of, I don't think he ever intended to like hurt Sally or John. I think that was always his intention, to be like, have the one final battle with Fuchs, and I don't care if I die, because then I get to be with Cristobal again, like I'm tired of living without him.
Interesting.
And that's
Yeah.
why like that shot was so beautiful at the end of him, like after he gets shot and like reaching up and holding the hand of the statue and literally like cradling himself in it. Like,
Do you think he would have given John over to Fuchs if Fuchs had not said, "I just want you to say that you're a man with no with no love, just like I am. Like that moment when Fuchs was talking to him and doing that whole speech, you could see Cristobal sort of, there's a turn in him where he's like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm not like you. There is love in my heart. I had this amazing person in my life. I didn't kill him. Even though technically he sort of did. Um, what did you think of that?
He brought up an interesting point because, like, at least two different characters have talked about the same issue of feeling safe. Sally did with like Barry when during that visit in prison and that. It's like I feel safe with you. Even though she just said it once and she almost looked like she was going to puke after saying it. NoHo said the same thing in that. He's like, I just wanted us to be safe, which is why he conceded to the wishes of the Chechnyan mob and that. And in a way, yeah, I think, Brett, you're right. He brought Fuchs there and that for what he thought was probably to protect him from Barry, but really was to put an end to everything on that because I think he was tired. Like he loved what he was doing. He loved like having like the money and the power and everything, but being called out like that by somebody like Fuchs.
Yeah. Again, that last sequence, the last scene of him holding Cristobal was beautifully shot. And if Cristobal and NoHo were alive and were like, you know what, I want a portrait made, that's what the shot would have been.
Perfect. It would have been
100%. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't already a portrait painted of like something like that in the house.
That would have been amazing. That would have been fantastic.
I want to get one commissioned now, kind of like the Kramer from Seinfeld, the Kramer painting.
Just
get
that image of Cristobal and NoHo Hank holding each other and like.
That would make a great T-shirt.
What you want to do is take that image from the episode and pop it in one of those AI things, and they'll make that image for you. Although don't do that. That's bad.
Yeah, AI sucks.
AI is good for certain things. Don't do that. Don't steal people's art. Man, the man of the hour, Barry Berkman, the ex-soldier,
Barry
turned assassin, turned actor assassin, turned religious convert, and the back to
after turning to prisoner and then fugitive from the law.
Yeah, fair. Where to start? Where to start?
I think I want to start with just saying that the irony of his character in my eyes, which is that he's praying for that out to get out of the life he's currently stuck in, and he finds it in that acting class and everything that brings out of it. But as the show progresses, you literally can't help but think he'd rather be doing anything but fucking acting. That like it was something that pulled him out of that life, and that was great, but cooking might have done the same thing. I think no matter who that person he was sent to get when he was sent to do the hit on Ryan in that sequence, no matter where Ryan walked into, that was the thing that was going to save Barry's life. Because you'd really do you not feel the entire time that he had so much indifference towards acting?
It's not the indifference in that. It's that he was trying to find a substitute for that rage that was in him and that. But there really
happened to be an acting class he walked in on that night.
Yeah. It could have been a painting or carpentry class. Yeah. I get that impression. But there was nothing that could really bottle up that rage, because it always came back for him. In killing that friend of his. What was his name? Oh,
I know the actor's name. I don't remember the character name.
Which guy?
Chris. Remember Chris after the whole.
And then he made a whole memorial type thing for him.
Yep.
And then later on in season 3, his wife poisons him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But again, that's the rage and like all the consequences that came along with it, and it's something you could never keep a lid on. Like, remember season 2? I remember thinking like somewhere around episode 6 or 7, I was like, he's not killed a single person this entire season in season 2 until it reaches episode 8, and then he kills about like 30.
Kills everyone.
He killed like at least 30 people in that monster. In a piece of place of peace, place of peace. Oh my God! And then like the final, his final episode in that, the whole him walking into what I presume is some sort of Walmart, with the music playing overhead and
What? I
guns,
wanted guns. What
and
kind of
then
guns? Silence.
and
No,
then
just silence and then
the
walking out.
tracking shot, that long tracking shot, which is another Mark Scorsese thing, So
The
but
long tracking shot.
two assault rifles strapped to his back in a Walmart, while More Than Words by Extreme plays over the loudspeakers.
Yeah. Nobody, and I watched the
Nobody,
entire time, nobody even batting an eye at it.
no,
Like, nobody even giving it a second look.
yeah.
And then, quite arguably, I think one of the funniest like moments in the entire final episode is him trying to get into the driver's seat without taking the guns off his back.
But remember when he was driving and the rage you could see in his face. I like Bill can do a good angry face in that, but there's something about like maybe it's the years as an actor in that, but like when you looked into his face at those moments and that, it just looks like his eyes have changed color into just pure black.
Yeah. I also want to give a quick shout out here for Bill Hader, because something I don't think we have mentioned at all is that not only does he star and produce the show, he's written almost every episode. He's directed almost every episode. He directed the entire final season. Like this was his baby. Like this was I think Alec Berg came up with the concept, and then they basically like he took it and ran with it at that point. Like so it's I love seeing a show where somebody is able to get so much creative control to really like showcase who they are. Like, because a lot of people come off of Saturday Night Live and they get like a movie or something based on one of their characters,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, great, you had 15 minutes, and then they fizzle off and you never see them again. It's always wonderful to see the people who come off of that and say, I'm going to take the time that I need to find the right project for me. And that's exactly what he did, and that's why he will reach that upper echelon. Like
He's smart in
yeah,
the way. I want to say Louis C.K. did the same thing in that when he did his television series and that, he got full creative control because he took less money and, he worked with what he had, which I think is probably a model that Bill followed for this show. And that it's like a half-hour series without any huge, any huge CGI practical effects, that kind of thing. And that there's some, definitely some technical, sequences that involve like stunt coordinators, obviously. But I think
the good example of that is Larry David with Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
There's a project where he literally went in and said, like, I want creative control and I want to be able to make the episodes when I want to make them. Yeah. And they were like, well, we're going to pay you way less. And he says, well, I don't care about money. I made Seinfeld. I'm good. Like, and
exactly.
he basically went in and said, I want to make episodes when I feel like making them, and I want to make them my way. And they went, okay. And that's what people need to be doing if you have that opportunity to do it.
Interesting.
It's a wonderful formula, and it's something you can do forever, basically. And that if a studio thinks that we can get a show that's going to draw 10 million viewers and that for a budget of maybe $2 million, in production values,
yeah,
or we're going to let you do it. But he chose to keep it small and compact, 8 episodes and 4 seasons.
Yeah. Well, because there's another one that I've seen on a podcast that he did where he talked about how because this show was starting production leading into the pandemic and got shut down. So when they announced that it was being shut down for production, they had already started work on season 2. So he and the writers decided, well, we're not going to let this deter us. Like let's write season 3. And then when they finished season 3, they were like, everything's still shut down. Like, you guys want to write season 4? And then they wrote all of season 4, and they've had it ready to go for several years now. And that was when they made the decision that was going to be the end, because they literally were like, he said the way they worked each season was we went, where do we want to see him at the end of the season? Let's work backwards from that. And they said after season 3, there really was nowhere to go with the character other than to end it. And sure, we could find ways to, he goes back to the military, or he, opens a dental school or whatever. It's like, no, that's not generic. It's not genuine. It's like he's in jail. We know he's going to break out. Where does it go from there other than to end it? And I love love people who do that with production. I don't care if a show lasts 2 or 3 seasons, or if it lasts 11 or 12 seasons. If you have a direction, if you have a narrative, roll with it.
Sure, but they've had like so much experience with the anti-hero in TV and that over the last 2 decades and that, it's like they decided they watched what happened to Dexter and that with the kind of, because like, when you think about it, there was a kind of a similar premise in that, a killer and that trying to find a normality in life and that.
Yeah.
Dexter just went too long and changed showrunners too often.
Yeah,
For it
and
to,
their
like,
answer to
really
that was
gel.
keep it going longer.
Yeah, 8
Keep
Then bring
seasons.
it back.
8 seasons.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they did because I'm really actually enjoyed how they capped off his story with New Blood.
Yeah, I couldn't even
I
bother
haven't
to watch
watched
that.
I haven't
No.
watched
So
any.
um,
Anyway,
you
back
know.
to Barry.
But like I said, Barry as an anti-hero and that is particularly violent like him and that they knew there was only like 2 possible ends to that, and I'm glad they just decided we'll keep it short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that he is an anti-hero as it were, but he's always throughout the whole series he's struggled with his guilt and his desire for redemption, right? And that's sort of the interplay throughout all the way till the end when he becomes this born again Christian, and it's all about redemption at that point. What do you think of Barry's play on these two themes throughout or at least his character throughout the series?
I mean, he wants to be a good person in that, but there's something deep down inside him that just won't let him. It's like as soon as like some sort of a perceptible threat to the way of his life comes along, and that he goes into one mode and that's soldier, and unfortunately, he's very much trained in like as a soldier to go out and eliminate whatever problems he's got in this life. And he's someone who has to be told the right direction to go, which is where a lot of guys like why a lot of people end up in military service and that they need that guiding hand, and him without one and trying to find it on his own. I the whole bit with teaching his son about Lincoln and how great a guy Lincoln was, and then doing some research into Lincoln, and it's like, oh, Lincoln wasn't such a good guy.
It's not bad. We don't like Lincoln anymore.
He just can't stop searching. He's looking for that right voice, the one that tells him the path he has to take.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, he is such a narcissist. He will not listen when it comes to making the tough decisions. Gene emerges out of hiding after 8 years from that's what I wanted to talk about. Gene shooting his son and then disappearing and living on a kibbutz in Israel for like 8 years. But Barry, he's looking for a voice to tell him, but he also wants that voice telling him that he was right all along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Barry to me reads as somebody who's desperately trying to lose weight and doesn't know how to do it. And like they're reading all the books, they're talking to other people and getting the opinions, but then it actually comes down to the point where you have to do the work yourself, and suddenly you start hearing that voice in your head going like, let's start this tomorrow. We'll start it tomorrow. You know what? Like, let me give myself one more week and then we'll start this next week. And that always seems to be him, is that he knows what he has to do. He knows the right thing to do. He knows the path he should be taking. But it's just so hard for him to do that because he has spent so much of his life making hard decisions, but having those hard decisions be made for him in the military. So now that he's actually out and having to make them himself, it's so difficult for him to actually commit to doing the right thing when it's just so easy to fall back on where he was. I mean, you even see that in the first season where literally 4 episodes in a row after he kills someone, he makes the decision, okay, I'm not going to kill anyone else starting now. And then the next episode, he finds himself in another position where he could find a way out of it, but instead takes the easy road, kills them, and goes, okay, starting now. Like
he really is. He's trying to find his sense of purpose throughout this whole time, and he keeps on like just falling back on something that's so familiar and easy for him to do.
Yeah.
And really, he's from the moment we meet him, he's really on this journey of self-discovery, and I don't think he ever gets to the point where he realizes what he is or what he wants to be. Like you were saying, he hasn't really put in the work. and that's sad because he's constantly struggling with his internal voice and all these outside factors, and he just keeps on going back to what he knows. And I guess that's sort of what Gene sort of wanted him to do too, right? When he kept on asking him to open up and pull back on all that psychological stuff that he went through as a soldier.
And that's why it's almost kind of like this whole series is almost kind of, it's the Gene Cousineau story more than Barry's story. Because it really is. Everything that happened in this series at the end that was bad for Gene was because of him constantly pulling this guy back into that world instead of letting him escape it. And for selfish reasons. Hey man, you're a good actor. I want to bring these painful things out of you so that you keep getting better, so that I get notoriety for it. But then all of a sudden everything bad starts happening and his life gets turned upside down because of this. But it's Barry's fault, not mine. It's Barry's fault. He's the bad guy.
Yeah. In the final sequence, we see him. Wait, did you guys talk about his death when I was earphoned out when you were talking about?
We talked a little bit.
That was the Departed comparison.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you talked about the significance of him having such a insignificant death.
We were more drawing the comparisons and the like where he got the influences for that to make that decision.
Interesting. Oh yeah. So I want to know what your thoughts of. I know fans were probably like, he's gonna die in a blaze of glory. There's gonna be this big fight between this Chechenian gang.
I never thought that.
I didn't think that.
How he went out is exactly how I thought it was gonna happen.
Yeah. Just
I could sort of see where it was heading as soon as he got to Gene's house and he was inside and Gene had the gun. That same gun that Gene that completely failed on Gene at the beginning of season 3 and that. But remember when the cylinder fell out and rolled underneath the desk?
Yeah. For myself, like when I was watching this sequence and Barry was like, "I'm gonna go and save Gene. I'm here to call the police. I'm gonna give myself in." When I heard the gunshot, I thought Gene killed himself initially.
So did I.
And then we see the wound on his shoulder and then we get the headshot. It was very jarring, but it felt so right for this series.
Yeah.
I've always said that this show has always gone in the direction that I've least expected it to. So I sat there and I thought, what is the way that everyone would expect this series to go out? And they expect it to go out in a blaze of gunfire, or you expect it to go where he, pulls a Dexter and grows a beard and becomes a loggerman, in Canada. And I was like, no, the way that I least expected to happen is halfway through the episode, he's going to get killed. And there it was.
Yeah, like all the gun violence we've seen throughout the series has always been. Some of it had a little bit of a comedic touch, but it always felt very real. And I'm going back right to the first episode, and that one, with him approaching the car window with the 3 Chechens inside.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when? Yeah. Hey man, don't point that gun at me, man.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
And then like that, him and the them showing like what Barry was capable of. 4 shots to the guy in the with the rifle, 4 shots to the driver, and then 4 shots. That's like what Marines are taught to do. When faced with a situation like that, 4 shots, empty your mag out at your threat, and Barry's death at the hands of Gene. It's like when it happened, like that shoulder wound. I was like, okay, it's just a shoulder wound. He can survive that, no worries. And then once you have that headshot, it's like it's so jarringly final that I sat there with my jaw open for at least a couple minutes.
And his
I
last
love
words,
the way he snapped to black, like as it happened to So you just kind of see the head a little bit and then boom to black. So you're still, even then, you're like kind of. I'm assuming he did the headshot, but
maybe.
And then coming back with that audience shot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, just the single tableau that just slowly pulls back and reveals everything that just happened.
And they've done that tableau shot so many times on this show, and it's always such a striking image. Remember I can't remember. I think it was last season when they arrested Barry, and you see it through the windowsill. You see Gene and Janice's dad. I can't remember his name. Talking,
Mr. Moss.
They're just pulling back. Oh man, like they do it to such a good effect in finale episodes of this show, and this one was pitch perfect. Man, Barry. we talked about his internal struggle. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else we can touch upon with this character. He's so nuanced and like there's so many depths to him that I don't think we could do justice just talking about him
Yeah.
on one
I like
episode.
the one moment that Conan O'Brien pointed out at in the first episode of season 4 was after he had been arrested and Kuznel looked him in the eye and said, "I got you." You know, like I did this, I got you.
Mhm.
And then you see him in prison on the phone trying to get a
Oh,
hold of Kuznel, and the only thing he can say is not like, I'm gonna kill you or anything like that. It was literally like, "Mr. Kuznel, did you trick me?
yeah,
Like
I know
did
how hurt he was.
why would you do this to me?" Like
I
he's
love
not
you.
angry, he's not sad, he's not angry. It's just like disbelief. Like, no, I don't believe that you were responsible for this. Like you couldn't be. It's his disconnect from how he thinks people see him to how he actually is perceived is it's childlike.
Mhm.
Like in that moment, it was just so childlike.
Which is
Like,
funny because I think
It's
that's a
also
central theme for every character here. They don't see
yeah,
themselves as they actually are. Like you
Mhm.
look at Gene when he's telling that story to that reporter, and he's portraying Barry as this like dumb soldier and like
Yeah,
him as this hero, and then Sally's always seen herself as this amazing actress. Like it's a great theme to pull in the
the
show.
the way you describe Barry in that about how he can't understand like why somebody would do this to him and that's also a common trait with psychopaths. Psychopaths. People think they don't have emotions, but they do. They have very complex emotional lives. Psychopaths just don't recognize those same complex emotional lives in other people.
Mhm.
So, Barry is like torn to pieces like at Gene's betrayal, but he can't understand it from Gene's point of view about why he would do this, which
Yeah.
is why he comes off like such a naive child talking to him on the phone.
Oh man. Any final thoughts on the show before we do our favorite sequence?
As
Or favorite
as
scene?
heavy as we've made it out to be in that, like, it is a heavy show in that, but
It's
there
a
are
it's a
so many
fun it's a
it
fun
is a
watch.
there's
fun heavy.
yeah. I feel like we didn't really like touch on just how comedic the show is, how funny it is at times.
And how
Like which
absurd
yeah,
some of the sequences are.
you listen to everything we've just said, you don't think that it could possibly be, but like it literally has some like insanely laugh out loud moments in this show.
Speaking of, I'm going to talk about my favorite sequence because let's just end this with one of our favorite, if not two of our favorite scenes. And it's hard not to say the Ron Lilly episode.
Yes.
The whole fight sequence, which was most of the episode. I feel like it felt like it just kept on going, and
The fact that
the
that was actually like a 12-year-old stunt girl and she was doing all of that herself that entire episode was
I
like,
did
oh
not know
fuck yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
nope.
Um,
It was there. That's another one where go back and look at some of I think it was his first podcast on Conan where he recorded that around the time that episode came out, and that was all Conan wanted to talk about was that episode, and he explained how they found the girl, like how that episode came about. Like it was incredible.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then like so Barry goes to try and kill the boyfriend of this is gonna sound so weird. The boyfriend of a police detective's ex-wife, because he's getting
He's been blackmailed
by
Yeah.
this police
by the
detective.
homicide detective who worked
Uh,
with Janet Moss.
Yeah, who is the partner of Janet Ross.
I know.
And we see him go into this house, and he's there to kill this guy, and he's like, I'm gonna try and not.
We're gonna get you out of the
We're gonna get
cities
you out
wearing
of,
this
go up to
ridiculous
Canada,
ski
you'll be
mask.
fine.
We're gonna get you out of the city, hide you out for a while until this blows over.
And then
that
you see that he's a judo like champion.
Taekwondo,
Was it Taekwondo? I couldn't remember. I thought it was judo.
Olympic champion, and the reveal of it is so good in that because it starts out small. You go into the guy's bedroom and that, and you see like the trophies and that on those nightstands, and then you finally see behind the wall and that, and the competition like ribbons and trophies and gold medals that he
They're
wore.
everywhere.
Yeah,
And then so Barry starts fighting him, and then we assume that he dies in the house. And we're like, oh man, okay, cool. And then you see his daughter show up, and you're like, oh fuck, his daughter saw everything, and then she starts fucking going at Barry, and it's just hilarity and amazing choreography the whole way through. This fight
Right.
continues for the rest of the episode. They're chasing this child. They get to a pharmacy, and then the dad comes back, and just it just keeps going. And like Daniel Bernhardt, who played Ronnie Proxon, that's the Taekwondo champion. He's actually like one of the best stuntmen out there. And
He was
Mm.
sorry, he was in John Wick 1 as
yeah,
a lieutenant of the thing in that jail, the one John had those amazing fights with.
yeah, he's been in a bunch. He actually goes on Corridor Crew and talks about all the stunt work that he's done, and he breaks down scenes. He actually broke down this one on the at least the house fight. So
What's amazing is the guy in the suit from John Wick and that, is Ronnie and that, who's kind of a broke down, like, dressed in like, fatigues and gym, like,
yeah,
track pants and that, and smoking the like Jay as soon as he gets in the house. He still has it though.
he's really good friends with the guys who direct the guy who directed Extraction, who's also a stuntman.
Oh,
He
the
also,
Russos.
no, Extraction wasn't the Russos, was it?
Extraction, yeah.
Was it?
The Chris Hemsworth one.
I thought that was a different director. Let me see. Anyway, that's not important. I thought it was like one of the stunt people from The Matrix who directed it.
Sam Hargrave.
Sam Hargrave, yeah. So
Oh wait, no, that's Extraction 2. Uh,
I'm ruining this.
no, it's the Russos.
Is it?
Oh no, it's directed by Sam Hargrave, written by the Russos.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was one of the stunt people from The Matrix that directed it. That's why they got all the amazing shots.
Yeah.
And he was like sort of one of the stunt coordinators for it. And yeah, if you don't watch the stuntmen react stuff on Corridor Crew, you should. Anyway, that's my favorite sequence, if not favorite episode. I know we talked about it slightly earlier too.
I know that was definitely my favorite, but there are
Sorry, sorry.
there are so many though. There are so many.
You want to think of one, and I'll go through with mine.
Go.
Okay, you
So-
go ahead with yours. I'll go with
Yeah.
mine.
So I already kind of mentioned what my favorite episode is, which was the biker gang episode. But I'm gonna not talk about the chase scene in that episode. I'm gonna talk about my other favorite part of that episode, which I think hits on the comedy of the show, and that is beignets by Mitch.
Yes. Oh my God, Mitch.
The stoner guy who works at the beignet shop, like the surfer dude. And it's this lovely ongoing joke through the entire episode that almost every single character visits this guy because his beignet shop is like magical. Like it is the best thing ever. And everyone wants to go and get the food from him. And so there's like a storyline where almost every character finds their way in there to buy something. And every single one of them is like having a crisis of conscience at the time where he has some weird story out of nowhere relating to like some buddies of his from college, or these guys I used to like work for, or these guys I went to a concert with, and it relates perfectly to every character's like what they're going through, and everyone just leaves like just praising Mitch. Like
Yeah.
it's like Mitch is like he's a master.
He's like a guru.
That entire episode was just perfection. Like it was so good.
Bad props to Tom Allen who portrayed Mitch in
Mhm.
that episode.
Doesn't he
give
like
you-
at the end of it? I'm pretty sure he expands too.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
if one of them finds him at his second location that he's opened up since like the beginning of the episode.
That's so funny. And I remember in the episode he tries to get NoHo Hank to expand. He's like, I like you. Do you want? And I'm thinking about expanding. Do you want to join? And he's like, no. I was like, come on, NoHo Hank. This was your way out. There's another one. He could have gotten out.
I'll tell you one of my, I don't know if we call it a sequence, but definitely like bad sequence. I'm calling it sequence. The beginning of episode 1 from season 3, it just come back after, because like Barry was away for like 2 years because of the pandemic, I believe,
Yeah.
at that point. So I think a lot of people had expectations in that, and that opening was just perfect. Barry standing in the middle of near like a Joshua tree.
Oh,
And that eating the beignet, and that when you hear like somebody begging for the life, which you're pretty sure is Fuchs. You think, oh, he's caught up with Fuchs, and Fuchs is begging for his life. And no, it turns out that Barry is like at a low point in his life, taking jobs from Craigslist and that for people who basically want their ex-wives or lovers killed. and listen to this guy say, "I'm gonna cut." He wanted to take the guy's eye out. He's like, I guess okay." Barry goes, "Let's get the tool," and the two of them made up while Barry had in the time it took Barry to go to the trunk to pick up that tool. The guy
Yep.
just like, "Let's call it off. He's made mistakes. My wife is not innocent in all this." And it's like, "I've forgiven him. I forgave Jeff." Bam, bam.
Kills both
There's
of
no
them.
forgiving Jeff. There's no forgiving Jeff.
Oh man, it's so good. That like we don't. There's no justice for what we've said for these episodes because they're better than what we've even said.
No,
Like, they're just
yeah.
they're just that good. And honestly, watch it on HBO now because if anything we've learned in the past 2 weeks, people are just like companies are just taking things off of these streaming services like no one's business, just so that they don't have to pay the creators anything. So that's my last thing to say about this show. Definitely check it out because it's phenomenal. Thank you, Hawk, for telling me to watch this and berating me for like years to watch it because I finally watched it. This was you getting me back for The Expanse.
Yep.
So yeah, this was an amazing watch, and I'm glad I saw this and I got to watch the final season live. We're gonna be
now
back.
we adjust ourselves emotionally and then get ready to be absolutely like
Wrecked
destroyed tomorrow.
Fuck. So we're talking our next episode. I don't know if we're gonna do it in 2 weeks or we do it this week or like next.
I think
Monday.
we do it this week
Because as soon as we watch the final episode of Ted Lasso, we're gonna want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Even just last week's episode, the mothers episode was oh my god, my heart.
Every episode, like last week. Okay, we'll talk about when we get.
We'll talk about
it. Last week's episode literally made me cry 3 times.
Yeah. That's oh my god.
Coach Beard made me cry. Like.
Coach Beard's speech, with Nathan. Oh my god.
Anyway, but
as you can tell,
when
we're
we
big.
do that, I
I
want to make sure that Dave is on the show because Dave said that he has some very different opinions about that show than we do.
I know.
I'm excited to hear that.
I know why he stopped watching, and
yeah,
it is going to be an interesting talk about it.
I'm looking forward to that.
We'll be back maybe in a couple days. It depends how eager we are to talk about Ted Lasso. I feel like that's gonna be one I'm gonna have to like emotionally process because every episode I've had to like take that moment.
I'm almost tempted to like, if I wasn't busy the next couple days, like I would be tempted to like sit down and try and do a rewatch of the entire thing beforehand. But instead I just watched one of those again, like what I did with Barry. I just watched one of those like 20 minutes like of here's everything that happened on the first few seasons to get you caught up.
I'm debating having a watch party for the finale. I'll let you guys know about that. I know most of the time we don't talk during those watch parties because we're just like, but do we really want to cry amongst each other? Maybe. We'll find out. Anyway, thank you guys for coming and talk about Barry. This show is amazing. Everyone out there who's stuck through us to the end and hasn't seen the whole series, check it out. Check it out right now. Just do it. Crave in Canada, HBO in the States. I don't know where it is internationally. Hopefully it's other streaming services. Thank you, Hawk. Thank you, Brent, for coming and chatting. Thank you out there for listening. We will see you guys soon. Maybe sooner than you think. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it for us this week on Geeks with Kids. If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at podcast@geekswithkids.ca. And don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/geekswithkids. Follow us on Twitter at geekswithkidscn. Check out our pics on Instagram at geekswithkids. And you can find all of this good stuff on our website at www.geekswithkids.ca. So if you like what you hear, why don't you hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment. This podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and your favorite podcasting app. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.